Rajat, if you have to analyze the Prime Minister's speech, what do you make of it?
I think, there was one clear takeaway from one of the longest speeches that we've heard from a Prime Minister is that he wanted to do a hard reset, put a pause or a full stop rather on all the electoral rhetoric. Whatever has happened is all in the past. From here onwards, a confident Prime Minister who is ready to take on the reform agenda for the next 5 years. He has laid the foundation for that. And I think he's been very clear. His message is not just to the opposition, but to all his alliance partners as well, that he means business, and he and his stated ideological premise would stay consistent no matter what political compulsions are there. So I think it's a firm resolve that we've seen from the Prime Minister, and therefore you will see from here onwards the government would continue to push the pedal on some of the important agendas. There will be definitely more deliberations around One Nation, One Poll. There will be more deliberations around the UCC now. We've already seen Waqf Property Act. This was a major ideological position of the BJP and its supporters that this should not be. This should actually be removed, and we've seen movement on that front already. So I think loud messages, even this 5 years, would be a continuum, ideological continuum for the Prime Minister.
Well, all right. The Prime Minister, as Rajat Sethi says, made it very clear that he means business to his allies. But will his allies play? Because even where the Waqf Board bill was concerned, it's gone to a select committee. And if you look at the select committee members, then it's going to be with the select committee for a fair point amount of time. But Ashutosh, quickly come in. What did you make of the speech? 98 minutes, not just the longest, possibly the longest speech that any Prime Minister, including Prime Minister Modi, has made from the ramparts of the Red Fort.
I think it's indifferent, it's a repetitive, and it's self-contradictory. Self-contradictory for the simple reason, look at what he was speaking about about the corruption. I think the Prime Minister and the whole party should introspect. What he is seeing from the Red Fort, was it the honest confession or something else? Is it true that all those people who have been accused of corruption charges and serious corruption charges, they were all brought into the BJP? And look at in the Maharashtra itself, the whole BJP is against it, the RSS is against it, how Ajit Pawar could be brought into the party, into the coalition. And the whole party is revolting against this. The RSS the magazines are writing about it. So the Prime Minister is talking about the corruption, then I can only say that he's contradicting himself. If there is a conviction, then the law should be equally applied to each and everybody, whether he belongs to the BJP, whether he belongs to Congress or anything. About Congress, calling the whole constitution as a communal constitution, I think this is something which I can only laugh at. Because if the BJP has discovered today, then I'm really surprised that after 75 years, today the BJP has discovered the whole constitution is a communal constitution. It's not a secular one.
But he didn't, Ashutosh, where did he use the word constitution?
It means the same thing, you know better than me. Sometimes the things which are not said, you are calling communal, and you want to make it secular. So that means you are insulting basically to our constitution makers. You're insulting Baba Saheb Ambedkar, insulting Sardar.
Ashutosh, many would say that's a political play of word. That's not what he meant. But just stay with me.
Prime Minister on this day has to be very, very honest with the nation. That's what I can say.
All right. Okay. Let me bring in our two spokespersons into the mix as well. Tuhin Sinha, BJP spokesperson. Tuhin Sinha, today the charge is that the Prime Minister might have spoken for 98 minutes, but he didn't speak like a Prime Minister, is what the opposition is saying. To use words like, a communal civil code really doesn't suit the Prime Minister. Would you reckon?
Well, good evening, Preeti. A very happy Independence Day to you to all my co-panelists, and to all your viewers. Well, this was the 11th consecutive speech of Prime Minister Modi from the ramparts of the Red Fort. And he was more energized than ever before. The ideological conviction is as unflinching, as steadfast, and at the same time, he was brimming with new ideas. So that sums up the frustration of this opposition, because they realize that, he's certainly not a Darawa Prime Minister. He's here for the next 10 years. I think the message is very clear. Now, there are 3 or 4 things which needs to be highlighted. Number one, the ideological conviction. He has been very candid on UCC, and yes, the Prime Minister has had an outspoken style. If it is a communal, if we believe it's a communal, UCC, I think Ashutosh may grimace over here, but he needs to be reminded of the words of B.R. Ambedkar, who had said that the UCC is extremely necessary. Now, the point is, at the same time, there are lots of fresh ideas. Getting 1 lakh people into politics with no political pedigree, obviously the plan would be made in the time to come, but I think that's a vision which has not been executed anywhere across the world, and to execute it in a country of the size of India, in the country of in the size of the diversity of India, would be absolutely remarkable. Plus, obviously, he was very harsh on corruption. He was very harsh on those state governments which have been shielding criminals involved in crimes against women. So I think it was an all pervasive speech. It was something which has, really made his intent very clear. He means action. And I think that is what is worrying this opposition today.
All right. Okay. As I'm going to bring in Mohan Kumar Mangalam, but allow me a rebuttal, Tuhin Sinha. You're right. In a lot of ways, where he spoke of bringing in more people in politics, where he spoke of medical seats, where he spoke of gender empowerment, especially crimes against women, a lot of it is reformist. But when you look at the other side, certain words, once again, you say that maybe the UCC in the country has been communal. On what grounds do you make that statement? Because that's a very big statement to make from the ramparts of the Red Fort.
Preeti, if a 13-year-old girl continues to get married in the country, just because the country does not have a UCC, just because, it gets condoned under the pretext of personal laws, I think that is something which should worry everybody, including feminists and including journalists like you. That is precisely what's strange. You can't explain everything in the speech over there. But I think UCC is all about gender equality, and in the guise of pseudo-secularism, if certain parties have been encouraging practices which are detrimental towards, which encourage inequality in the society, I think it's about time to curb it. But yes, we have followed a different route. If you observe it, the state governments have taken a lead. Uttarakhand has implemented its UCC, the Goa state government has UCC, and to my understanding, a time could come very soon where most of our state governments would have implemented UCC, paving the way for it to be implemented at the national level.
But Tuhin Sinha, many would suggest that the likes of UCC adopted by the government, Uttarakhand is highly troublesome in its nature, but that's a matter of another debate, understandable.
Can I come in?
Yeah, sir, allow me to bring in the Congress spokesperson, and I'll come back to you on that. Mohan Kumara Mangalam, the sheer fact that the Prime Minister made some very strong statements, this doesn't smack of a Prime Minister who's weak. This doesn't smack of a Prime Minister who doesn't enjoy majority. He seems to be fairly strong, and he's very clear. He's sticking to core ideologies, whether you like it or not.
Preeti, I'm sorry I couldn't hear you clearly, but I heard the sort of the end of your question. And I'll say that the Prime Minister's speech has been fantastic in length, if not in substance. If he made this very speech in 2004, I think many more would have been impressed. But we've seen 10 years of what are only empty words and promises that he's not lived up to. The first Prime Minister itself said that uniform civil code is desirable, but everyone has to be taken along. The way we actually implement it is what matters. And if the Prime Minister's own allies trusted him enough to implement it in the way that it should be, then they would not be waiting for the draft, or they would not be waiting for his vision. I think their first reactions have been one of concern. So he can project strength, but there's many a slip between the cup and the lip, and he's not going to be able to bring anything through without either of his allies, neither of whom have actually come out and vociferously supported him. Even if his own 21st Law Commission said that it was neither necessary nor desirable. Now, as far as I heard Tuhin talk about child marriage, and I will just, for the education of everyone watching your show, they say that the Supreme Court actually is hearing a matter right now on basis of a petition filed by NCPCR on whether child marriages under Muslim personal law will prevail over the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. So many of these issues where there is discrimination in one particular religion's personal laws are being challenged in court, and the court is or will rather take decisions in that matter. As far as uniform civil code goes, I really believe the most important thing that we have to look at is how we go about it. I mean, Muslim law is not even codified. To codify, to reform, and then to reach a consensus, which also I will say, to the benefit of the Prime Minister, he did speak about all of us have to have various discussions about this. I just don't think the world, or at least the world of minorities, sees him as an honest broker in this regard. As far as his rhetoric about women's safety, I mean, where do we start? Bilkis Bano, Asaram, Ram Rahim, Brij Bhushan Charan Singh. I mean, the list goes on and on about how Mr. Modi shields those who are misogynistic. And as far as corruption goes, there's only one way Mr. Modi cures corruption is by making everyone who's corrupt join his party, making them chief ministers as far as the Assam chief minister is concerned, or even senior ministers, whether you go to Maharashtra and look at Praful Patel, whether you look at Ajit Pawar, the list goes on and on and on, Bengal Suendu Adhikari. So I don't think anyone takes what he says about these things seriously anymore. I just wish the Prime Minister had taken a moment to talk about something more substantive. I mean, this is Independence Day. I wish you and all the panelists an Independence Day. And this level of statesmanship is still missing in him, which is very unfortunate.